Mr. Clelland here from Clelland Maths. Today we are going to be looking at factorising again, factorising trinomials with a non-unitary coefficient of x squared. What that means in practice is just a number in front of the x squared term. So it could be 2, 3, 5, 7, minus 1 even, minus 2, anything which isn't just x squared. So for example, 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. Now, this follows on from a previous video on the basics of factorising trinomials, and in that video we looked at just ones where it was x squared plus something, and we had a method for that using the grid method, and we're going to use the same method again, but there's going to be a slight adjustment to do first of all to actually do the problem and get the factors out. So it is a little bit more complicated, but you should be able to follow along if you've watched the previous video. If you've not watched the previous video at this stage, go back right now and watch it. There's a little link up above for you to do that, okay? Let's go straight into an example. So example 1 says factorise 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. And in the previous video, we always said we look for a common factor first. So we're going to do that. 2, 5 and 3. Well, there's no number other than 1 that goes into all of them, so there's no highest common factor. So we can now move on, and we now know it is double brackets because it is a trinomial. So we draw a grid. So we've got a grid drawn, and we know from the previous video that the 2x squared goes in this box at the top and the 3 goes in the bottom. And we know that we're looking for two numbers that add together in the here to make this 5. Okay? And in the previous video we would have times together to make 3. But because of this 2 at the front of the x squared, that's no longer going to be the case. In fact, they will times together to make 6. Where does that 6 come from? Well, it's because these 2 times together make 6. So in other words, these 2 times together also have to make these 2 times together. But also with the case of it, these 2 have to add up to the 5 as well. So there's quite a lot going on. I'll show you the actual answer to this, and then we'll work backwards to the method. So the actual answer would be 2x and x here, 1 here, and 3 here. So you would have 2x times 1 is 2x, 3 times x is 3x, 3 times 1 is 3. So you'll notice that we've got 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6. So the diagonals times together to make the same number, but also 2x plus 3x makes 5x. So that's the final answer is going to be the answer 2x plus 3 and x plus 1. And we want to work out what to do. So you should notice that the basic first part of the method is going to be timesing the first number and the last number together to get our 6, and then working out what pairs of numbers times together to make 6, but also add together to make this number 5. And that will be our bare bone basics of our method. Okay. So let me delete everything that's on there first and actually go through how to get the answer for this. In step 1, I take my 2 from the front and I times it by the 3. Remember that's coming from here, 2 times 3, and I get 6. And 6 is now my key number. I'm now looking for factors of 6. So it's just exactly like the previous video, factors of 6. So I list them in order, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Now I could list the negative ones as well, but we'll wait until we've got negatives in the question to be bothered with that. So we'll just stick with 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So 1 and 6, well I can't add 1 and 6 together to make 5, but I can do plus 2 plus 3 makes plus 5. So that's definitely my answer. So we now draw our grid. So we can write 2x squared, and then it's plus 2 plus 3, so it's plus 2x plus 3x, and then the plus 3 on the end, it was already there. Now how we get our factors. If you look, you've got 2 rows. One row says 2x squared plus 2x, and the other row says 3x plus 3x. And what we're going to do is take the highest common factor of the top row to get our first number. Once you've got your first number, the rest is easy. So we just look for the biggest number that goes into 2x squared and 2x. In that case, it's 2. So our first number, which will always be top left, is 2x. So 2x, I need to times that by x to get 2x squared. So I've now got the next one, x. 2x, I need to times by plus 1 to get 2x. So I've now got the top. The bottom, I could do the same again. So I factorise the bottom, or I could just check by going the other way to see what you need to put there. It's obvious it should be 3, but let's just check. So the highest common factor between 3x and 3 is 3, so I could write plus 3. And I'll just check that plus 3 is actually working. I've not made any mistakes. Later on, you'll have to watch your signs. 3 times x is 3x, that's great. 3 times 1 is 3, that's great. So everything inside the grid is correct, so I've got my answer. So my final answer is the top, x plus 1, and the side, 2x plus 3. And there's my final answer. Okay, let's move on to a second example. So example 2 says factorise 4x squared plus 16x plus 15. So let's go through our steps in order. First step, always when you say the word factorise, you check for a common factor. So, is there a number that goes into 4, 16 and 15? No, there's no number that goes into 4, 16 and 15, and therefore there's no common factor. So I can now move on knowing that it is double brackets and go through the steps to actually get the answer. So remember, our first step is to times the first number in front of x squared, 4, by the last number on its own, 15. So I do 4 times 15. So 4 times 15 equals 60. 60 is now my key number. I list the factors of 60 to see which pair will add up to 16, the middle number. So 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10, and that's all the pairs. We'll just go down them one by one. 1 and 60 doesn't make 16, just cross it. 2 and 30 doesn't make 16. 3 and 20 doesn't make 16. 4 and 15 doesn't make 16. 12 and 5 doesn't make 16. But 6 and 10, yes, that makes 16. Plus 6 plus 10 is plus 16. So that's the one I want. So remember, these are now our key numbers, our 6 and our 10. So we draw our grid. The next step now is to draw our grid. Just draw it here, put a cross. We write the first term, 4x squared. The next thing is plus 6x, then plus 10x, and then plus 15. You might at this stage be asking, does it matter what order I write the 6x and 10x? Doesn't actually matter. You'll end up with the same answer, okay? As long as you find the biggest number that goes into the top line for this first number, which is what we're going to do now. So the biggest number that goes into 4x squared and 6x is 2. So it's 2x. 2x times 2x is 4x squared, so that gives me my top one. 2x times 3 is 6x, so that gives me my next one. Looking at the bottom line, we've got 10x and 15. Well, the biggest number that goes into 10 and 15 is 5. So I can write plus 5. And then just a quick check right at the end. 2 times 2 is 4x squared. 2 times 3, 6x. 5 times 2, 10x. 5 times 3, 15. Everything is worked out fine. So I've done it correctly. I am done. If you end up with a mistake at this stage, just go back and check your numbers to check where you went wrong. It's probably something like you've times numbers together wrong, added something wrong. So we write down our final answer is just, we write down our final answer, which is just 2x plus 3, 2x plus 5. Okay, let's move on to another example. Example 3 says, factorise 6x squared minus 5x, take away 4. You'll notice this time there's some minuses being introduced, so we'll have to be very careful of our signs, but other than that, the method is exactly the same. So we check for a common factor first. There's no number that goes into 6, 5 and 4, so we can move on and times 6 by minus 4, because now this is negative. So step 1, 6 times minus 4 equals minus 24. I'll now list the pairs of factors of minus 24 in order. So I'll start with 1 always, 1 and minus 24, but now the opposite, minus 1 and 24, because it's a negative number. You've got 2 and minus 12, but you've also got minus 2 and 12. You've got 3 and minus 8, but you've also got minus 3 and 8. And then the last one, you've got 4 and minus 6, but you've also got minus 4 and 6. And that is all the factors of negative 24. So we'll now just check each pair in turn and check when you put them together, add them up, in other words, does it make this number that we're looking for, which is minus 5. So the first one, 1 take away 24, that's not minus 5. Minus 1 add 24 is obviously still not. 2 take away 12, well that's minus 10, so it's not that. Minus 2 add 12 is 10, so it's not that. 3 take away 8, well that is minus 5, so great. But just check the rest, just to be on the safe side in case you've made a mistake here. Minus 3 add 8, well that's plus 5, so it's not that. Be careful, it's plus 5, not minus 5. The one you're looking for is minus 5. The next one, 4 take away 6 is minus 2. Minus 4 add 6 is 2. So there's only one answer we want, and it's the answer 3 minus 8. So we're looking for plus 3 and minus 8 to get the minus 5. So we can now draw our grid on the side. Just to make this a little bit neater, I'll just put a line here. So there's a grid. So we've got 6x squared on the top. But now we've got plus 3x. And we've got minus 8x. Just check again, 3 take away 8 is minus 5, awesome. And then we've got minus 4 in the end. So then when our steps at this stage, seems like a lot of work so far, but hopefully you're still following along. But now our steps, we're almost finished. We just find the biggest number that goes into 6 and 3 to get the first number. Well, that is 3, so I can write 3x. And then we look for the biggest number that goes into 8 and 4. And then we see how to get the top. So 3 times 2 is 6, so it's 2x. 3 times 1 is 3, so it's plus 1. And then we do the same on the bottom. Biggest number that goes into 8 and 4 is 4. This is where you now have to check your sign, because you've got 4 times 2x, but I need to get it as minus 8x. So it's going to have to be minus 4. Minus 4 times 1 is also minus 4, so it's minus 4 instead of plus 4. And you'll see from each question whether that has to be plus or minus. But just a quick check, 3 times 2 is 6x squared, 3 times 1 is 3x, minus 4 times 2 is minus 8x, minus 4 times 1 is minus 4, so we're all good. We can write down now our final answer, which I'll do in green, is 2x plus 1, the top line, and 3x minus 4, the side. Let's look at a few more trickier examples. So example 4 says factorise 6x squared minus 13x plus 6. You'll notice again we've got a minus in here. Some of the numbers are a little bit bigger and more awkward, but we'll do the same thing over and over again and get the same answer. The same method will give us the right answer. So common factor first. 6, 13, 6. There's no number that goes into 6, 13 and 6, so there's no common factor. So I'll now move on to times in the first number 6 by the last number 6. So 6 times 6 equals 36. That's now our key number. So we can list factors of 36. And this time I'll just list the positive factors and then work out what the sum will be, because it'll just be a little bit neater, okay? So I've got 1 and 36, but you could list minus 1 and minus 36. You've got 2 and 18, but again you could list also minus 2 and minus 18. you've got 3 and 12, but you could list minus 3 and minus 12. You've got 4 and 9, and you've got 6 and 6. So now we just check each pair in turn, remembering that it could be both positive or both negative because we're making plus 36, okay? And we need to make in the middle, remember, minus 13. Now I know just from experience that since that is negative in the middle, they'll both have to be negative as well because that's positive on the end. But don't worry too much about that. All you have to do is check with the two pairs of numbers, is there any way to make minus 13? If there is, write down what that sum is, okay? So in the first one, there's no way. I can't use 36 and 1 to make 13. 18 and 2 makes 16 or 20, so it's not that one. 12 and 3, well, 3 and 12 is 15, or I can have 9 in some way, so I can't, 12 minus 3 is 9, it can't be that one. 4 and 9, well, 4 and 9 make 13. Well, I'm close now, I need 13. So how can I make minus 13? Well, I can make it as a minus 4 and a minus 9 to make minus 13. And then just lastly check, 6 and 6 make 12 or 0. Can't be 6 and 6. So if we now draw our grid, we've got 6x squared. Now it's minus 4x. Let's just highlight that. Minus 4 and minus 9, remember, are key numbers for the grid. So minus 4x, minus 9x, make sure you take the sign, and plus 6, the last thing on the end. So then we'll just do what we did in the previous examples. We're going to look for the biggest number that goes into 6 and 4 to make this number here. Well, the biggest number that goes into 6 and 4 is 2, so I'm going to write 2x. 2x times 3x equals 6x squared. 2x times minus 2 equals minus 4x. And now we need to get our bottom one. So we're looking for the biggest number that goes into 9 and 6. And we'll worry about the sign in a minute. Biggest number that goes into 9 and 6 is 3. So I'll write down 3. 3 times 3x is not 9x. So I'm going to need minus 3 to get the minus 9x. And then just a quick check. Minus 3 times 2 is minus 2 is plus 6. So finally I check the whole thing. 2 times 2, 3 is 6x squared. 2 times minus 2 is minus 4x. Minus 3 times 3x is minus 9x. Minus 3 times minus 2 is positive 6. Be very careful of your signs. Check and double check your signs. Make sure you know and understand. Plus times plus equals plus. Plus and minus make a minus when you times them, and negative times a negative equals a plus as well, okay? So we can write down our final answer. We've got 3x minus 2, and we've also got 2x minus 3 fully factorised. Okay, we'll do one final example. Example 5 says factorise minus 6y squared minus 5y add 4. You'll notice that this one looks trickier because there's a minus right in front of the thing that's squared. Does it make it any trickier? You just need to be careful and watch out for it, okay? So first step, always check for a common factor. 6, 5, 4, no number that goes into all of them. So we can move on to times in minus 6 by plus 4. So minus 6 times 4 equals minus 24. That's now our key number. So listing the factors in order, we've got 1 and minus 24, but we've also got the opposite, minus 1 and 24. Then we've got 2 and minus 12, or minus 2 and 12, 3 and minus 8, or minus 3 and 8, 4 and minus 6, or minus 4 and 6. And that is all of them. So we now check what sum does that make. Remember, we're trying to make minus 5. So 1 and minus 24, well, that's not minus 5. Neither is that. That should be obvious. Check the next one. 2 and minus 12 is minus 10. Minus 2 and 12 must be 10. None of these yet. 3 and minus 8. Oh, that's great. That's minus 5. That's the one I want then. Minus 3 and 8 is plus 5, so be careful of the sign. It's not the one I want. 4 minus 6 is minus 2. Minus 4, 6 is 2. So the one I want is plus 3 minus 8, because that makes minus 5. So going back up and drawing our grid. In the first box, we've got minus 6y squared. Then we've got plus 3y. And we've also got minus 8y. This is from the highlighted work we just done. And then we've got plus 4 on the end from the question. So we look for the biggest number that goes into 6 and 3. In this case, that is 3. So I can write down 3y. So we get 3y times minus 2y, watch the sign, minus 6 we're looking for, and then 3y times 1, so plus 1. And then we check our bottom line. The biggest number that goes into minus 8 and 4 is 4. So I can write down 4, but work out the sign in a minute. So I'll just write down 4. 4 times minus 2 is minus 8, so that's okay. Don't need a new sign. 4 times 1 is 4, that's okay, so it is a plus. If I was getting it that I needed it to be minus because that was the opposite, I would just make it a minus and just check again, okay? So then our final answer is 3 times minus 2 is minus 6y squared, 3 times 1 is 3y, 4 times minus 2 is minus 8y, 4 times 1 is 4. Whew. No mistakes, awesome, thank you very much. We have got the answer, we can just write it down now. So our final answer is minus 2y add 1 and 3y add 4. Thanks for watching this video on factorising trinomials when the coefficient of x squared is greater than 1. I'm hoping that that was helpful for you. There is actually a number of methods to factorise these things, okay? This one I think is one of the easier methods and one of the ones that are, I suppose, makes most sense mathematically, but there's other methods which will look more like tricks that can help with that. And what I do, I might make up a super video, a little video which highlights those methods, but I would prefer that this would be the preferred method because it makes more sense mathematically. Stay safe out there, hopefully you enjoy yourself, have fun, and if you've got any questions, please make sure you get in contact.